Have you ever been watching a live band and it was so moving and so deep that you have an out of body experience or that you feel like maybe you died? That's what everyone's going for, right? Like on the stage and in the audience. Today, we consider why that might be and what it all means. And we'll be looking to rock music sensation Wet Leg for answers, or maybe just examples. This video will lead up to a single point in a single show. All right, so we'll get to Wet Leg. But first, let's consider why we stage and attend live music performances. I think it's to unite with the collective soul or the Godhead. For these reasons, five elements that I think complete the picture. Number one, music. Obvious, the most obvious. But sound vibration is the first thing. It's the most essential thing. Om is the primordial vibration, Word comes before creation. The Big Bang is a sound. It's an onomatopoeia. Also, people who have NDEs, near-death experiences, they will experience often a vibration or a hum, sometimes a symphony. Those things are also experienced by people doing different psychoactive substances, hallucinogenic and dissociative drugs. The human voice is perhaps the aspect most in touch with creation itself, even more than our hands, because it's a vibration from within, whereas our hands create the vibration outside of ourselves. Number two, lights. Not every show has them, but it's a major option. Again, near-death experiences report plenty of lights. Also, in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, different lights point to different paths through the Bardo. Like when you're wandering in the Afterworld or the Between Worlds, it's lights that you follow to get where you're going, basically. And the first white light, according to the Book of the Dead, if you go into it immediately when you die or immediately right before you die, you don't even have to face karma or anything. You just hit the transformational peak immediately, and that everybody has that option. I think that's interesting. But also consider, many prophets have seen the light, seen God in the light, or God has appeared as a light. Eyes have been burned by that light. Light is the thing that gives us energy. Light is the thing that casts truth into existence. Then there's number three, the crowd. Not only are you communing with other souls in solidarity, but you're giving yourself over to a collective experience. You're giving yourself to a collective dream on a stage, something that everyone around you is focusing on. You're agreeing to that reality, engaging in a collective trance. You're moving in sync sometimes, you and the people around you. It's a dissolution of self and ego. Ideally, that can definitely get wrecked. I'm not saying everyone is having or creating the ultimate concert experience in a crowd. People are imperfect. But everyone around you is a soul, is some sort of deva realm existence laid over this one, where we are separated by bodies, but in that room, all contained in the larger body of the concert hall. You're in touch in some way and reunited in some way with that collective soul. Number four, the performer. They're like a shaman or a priest. The person on the stage that we're all giving that focus to, giving the moment to. They're a conduit for the sound. They are a conduit for the Godhead. They're there to communicate with us. We elevate them. We trust them to open that world that they're showing us to us. We're trusting the experience that they're giving us, tapping into this collective consolidation of souls that is very similar to what we're going for on the other side of life. A lot of times in DMT trips, there is the cathedral idea or the pit with all the souls lining the walls, and at the bottom, there's sometimes a figure that is driving the sound of everything. And when you get to that point, there's always this crazy sound in the trip and da-da-da-da-da. That's maybe a whole other video on its own. But sometimes it's a conductor on that center stage, even there in these crazy trips. Salvia, I've never had this experience myself or even done salvia, but the people a lot of times will see themselves on a stage, and they will die on that stage. In that case, you're the observer and the observed, but there's this performative aspect where there is some central point of existence that all of the other existences turn toward and share existence with for a moment and give themselves over to. It's kind of like the performer is an extension of the crowd, but they are also the point of focus to make what everyone is doing have cohesion. Otherwise, everyone is just floating in space, but if they're all focused on a certain thing, then there is a consolidated moment, an experience that we're all having together. And that brings us to number 5, the emotion. If it all works perfectly, the oneness is felt. You commune with the dead, and you commune with God, and you commune with all the people around you. And there's no difference in any of that. That band in that time is the true spiritual experience. As long as your head is there on what is happening, and you're taking it in, and what you're feeling, that is the true spiritual experience. Do not doubt it. The emotion that comes from watching an event is why we're here. We're here to produce that emotion. So then, back to the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which I think has the most concrete explanation of an NDE or what happens when you die than anything I've ever seen. It's my favorite. I love this book. So according to this, there are 2 types of figures that will appear on day 7 of a person's death in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. This is when the deceased is in the Godhead Bardo. And these visitors to this realm are known as the Dakinis and the Vidyadhara. So listen to this excerpt from the Book of the Dead. Tell me what this sounds like. On the 7th day, a 5-faceted, multicolored light, which is indicative of the purity of your habitual tendencies in the expanse of reality, will arise before you. Simultaneously, the divine assembly of the awareness holders, arising from the pure realm of the skyfarers, will come forward to escort you. In the center of this mandala, suffused by rainbows and light, the unsurpassed Vidyadhara, known as the awareness holder of maturation, Padmanarchashvara, will instantaneously arise, his body resplendent with the radiance of the 5 lights. Now, in this section, there are actually 5 Vidyadhara involved, but the one who rises first in the center of the mandala, our stage here, is the central Vidyadhara. And the central Vidyadhara is Padmanarchashvara. I practiced a lot on that name, and I don't even know if I said it right. Padmanarchashvara, this is the performer. In the wet leg analogy, this would be Rhian Teasdale. And for a perfect fit, wet leg is a 5-person band too. And there are 5 Vidyadhara. So anyway, the text goes on to lay out the arrival of the other 4. And then this brings it all home with the following. Once again, from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Encircling these awareness holders, there will be inestimable crowds of dakinis. The dakinis of the 8 charnel grounds, dakinis of the 4 enlightened families, dakinis of the 3 abodes, dakinis of the 10 directions, dakinis of the 24 power places, spiritual heroes and heroines, faithful retainers and protectors of the sacred teachings, all wearing the 6 kinds of bone ornaments, playing drums, thigh bone trumpets, and skull drums, and waving banners made of the hide of ritually liberated beings. Canopies and streamers of human hide, the entire display pervaded by an incense cloud of burning human flesh, reverberating with the sound of countless and diverse musical instruments, the sound permeating all world systems, causing them to vibrate, tremble, and quake. The crescendo will reverberate as if to split your head. Performing their diverse dances, this array will come to escort those who have kept their commitments and to bring to account those who have allowed their commitments to degenerate. Sounds like a concert, right? It literally is a concert. And yeah, there is the body violence element, sure, but I think that's just to say that instruments are made of the earth, as are our bodies. It's all from the same source. It would make sense that some of these dakinis are just knee slapping. Tori Amos played her baby fat on Choir Girl Hotel. The body is an instrument. So I don't take the scary aspects to be that horrible. And they're all having a good time, even if, playing on bones and burning human flesh and all that ain't your thing. They're not on Earth. Things are different. Things are different in this other world, right? And it's not far off from things that you see at a metal concert. Maybe it's like, Alice Cooper or something. Maybe it's the evolution to or from that. So anyway, the dakinis are the souls all around you. They're taking in and celebrating the Padmanar Tashvara and the other Vinjadara. And again, there's a similar motif to the cathedral or the pit of dancing ghosts that people will sometimes report on DMT trips. In those cases, the Padmanar Tashvara can manifest in any number of forms, which are essentially reflections of the observer, which is also what the Tibetan Book of the Dead says. And I've always wondered if the weird beings that encircle the place in that realm are the devas, because the Book of the Dead says also that you can specifically see the devas, which are kind of like the sub-gods, that you can see them through dhyana, I think it's what it's called, but meditation, basically. So if you can meditate and see them, then I think that you could probably do different drugs and see them too. It seems this place, this other realm, can be reached through substances, meditation, or death. Though there may be the visage of a physical body, it's not necessary. So let's call this interspace. Outer space is out there. Interspace is in the collective experience. Interspace is where we are all trying to go, and ideally where I think we're going. Maybe through death, maybe through meditation and mindfulness and that kind of thing. But interspace is the moment. And if you're sharing a moment, then you have a mutual interspace, which is a special thing because that's a connection with another person. And when you have enough people achieving a collective interspace, then sometimes you get these big, undistracted power moments where everyone is just collectively exhilarated for a few hours. Nobody does this ritual, I'll call it, better than the Flaming Lips. I have to mention that. They have a very maximalist version of stagecraft that accomplishes this. But they deserve their own video. They deserve their own video. So we're gonna stick with the more stripped down wet leg because it's a simpler example. Whereas the state of inner space is very obvious with the flaming lips. It's more nuanced with wet leg, who you don't really associate with huge stagecraft and a huge production. They're just more of like a band playing their songs. So let's talk about that though, because I've seen Wet Leg on tour for each of the 2 albums that they have out now. First was at Variety Playhouse in Atlanta. Here are a few pictures from the show. They're not that great, but they were starting out. They were like kids in a band just blowing up. They had some stage lights, probably owned by the house, but they came out and played their songs, and like that was it. It was a good show, but at that point, it's just like this is a band and these are their songs. So it was a small operation. But then I saw them this past September at Franklin Music Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And the stagecraft was ramped way up. They're no longer just a band in their songs, but they're a band in their show. And this is a notable evolution because it consisted of very discernible, distinct, but effective visual output that made it all seem larger and more important and more powerful. So look at these pictures from the show. All they used to achieve this was fog, fans, bubbles, and very simple lighting. The lighting was, I think, just cans and strobes. I don't think there were even any moving beams. There were no wall washes. There were no lasers. These were very simple elements, but together they were so highly effective, especially the strobing, which has been used like without music for people to enter like trance-like states in meditation for a long time. The fog dumps out over the audience, and that carries the light out to wash over everyone and kind of creates this bonding effect. There's something very minimal but very effective going on at this show. With very few theatrics, they're creating a spiritual experience that extends beyond the music. They're tapping into the Chonyad Bardo again. If they're not opening a door to the afterlife, then they are recreating it, intentionally or not. So imagine you died and this is what you saw. Like, look at these pictures. Is this the goddess Persephone coming to take you home? And yeah, we will get to that. So let's consider the mythic symbolism here, intentional or not. First of all, the elements of stagecraft reflect the elements of physical reality. Lights are fire. Fans produce wind, which is air. The fog and bubbles are water, each being moved by the air. And the band itself is earth. Born of it, and we'll return to it, they are mostly carbon. So the structure of the thing is reflecting the cosmic order. It's setting the stage upon the stage. This is the stage beyond the band and their songs. This is the stage of the universe itself, again, imagined or actual. Now, upon that stage, contained within those carbon earth bodies is the so-called fifth element, the spirit that gives motion to their bodies and reflects the age-old archetypes that they represent. Now, there are 2 front women in this band, in Wet Leg, though one of them, Hester Chambers, hides in the shadows, kind of, as of the latest record. Looking at the cover, Hester is the one with her back to the picture. And in their promotional images, she is always hiding her face now. Rhian Teasdale is the one that does not hide. She is very front and forward, and both represent the unseen, watery, wintry quarter of the zodiac. While Hester is born in Aquarius. Rhian is a Pisces. So their ability to pull from those depths is unmatched. They are of the underworld, and they are showing it to us. I referred to Rhian Teasdale as the Greek goddess Persephone because this is the archetype that she represents. She is forward, but never so easy to grasp. She's feminine, but aggressive, dark, but light. And like her, Persephone is also associated with water. When the Greek philosopher Empedocles attached gods and goddesses to the elements, he specifically assigned her, Persephone, to water because she is the queen of the dead. Water represents the underworld. It's also funny that when you put the water babies together, you get wet leg. The story of Persephone is basically this. She is the daughter of Zeus and Demeter. Zeus gives Hades permission to abduct her and take her into the underworld. Her mother, Demeter, then becomes depressed and withdraws her fertility from the earth. And this causes all the vegetation to die and famine to take over the planet. After this, Zeus sends Hermes to Hades and to hopefully get Persephone back. So Hades complies, but he ultimately uses pomegranate seeds to keep Persephone bound to the underworld. So after this, Persephone returns to Demeter and the earth becomes fertile again because the return of water allowed for the crops to grow. Again, Persephone is water. However, because she's bound by Hades, she has to split her time. So she does winters in the underworld below, and then the spring and summers she does on earth above. So she is the provider of abundance, but she is also its breaker. Consider this within the lyrical content of Wet Leg, which really meanders between love songs and basically hate songs, telling people to leave them alone. She has a foot in both realms. So now, if Rhian Teasdale embodies the Persephone archetype, what is Hester, who hides in the shadows? Again, as of the most recent release, we don't really see Hester. She hides her face in promotional photos, and she blends in with the rest of the band on the stage. Not out in the front these days. She doesn't even have a Wikipedia page, so that's why it makes sense that Hester would embody Hecate. Hecate is associated with liminal spaces and the boundaries between worlds. So she also has a foot in both realms, just like her counterpart and friend Persephone. The difference between the two is that Hecate remains a master of the periphery, just like Hester. She is unbound from all things, Hades, earth, marriage, geography. This makes her both powerful and respected by the gods, untouchable in a way. This is also a distinctly Aquarian trait, to be so ingrained within a reality and its people, but to never really be explicitly attached. There's always a push and a pull for the Aquarius people. I know because I share Hester's birthday. So I like feel like I understand where she's coming from. And Hecate, Hester, I don't know. So according to the mythology, Hecate is the one who alerts Demeter that Persephone was taken by Hades, and also contributes to searching for her. And in some versions, she actually goes with Hermes to confront Hades. But like Rhian and Hester are homies, so are Persephone and Hecate. But then what about the guys in the band? Henry Holmes, Josh Mobaraki, and Ellis Durand. all above average players, by the way. So who do they represent? Well, I think we've already covered that in the Persephone myth, we have 3 distinct males that cover 3 distinct grounds. Zeus for the above, Hades for the below, and Hermes for the space between. Now, Henry, Josh, and Ellis don't quite have their personalities exalted like Rhian and Hester, who were the face of the band during their comeuppance, but I think Henry, the drummer, makes sense as Hermes since he is literally Hester's partner, and both together inhabit the between and the liminal. Also, Henry, Hermes, Hester, Hecate, I'm going to put Josh for Zeus since he's a guitar god who makes the more soaring and colorful sounds. And it makes sense to have Ellis as Hades since he plays bass, which is low and thick and foundational. In any case, what you're seeing when you see Wet Leg on the Moisturizer tour is an ancient play act of the Persephone myth. They are showing you the business of the underworld. It's either right there before you, reflected from time immemorial, or it's a recreation from the subconscious. But really, what's even the difference? You're getting it. So we covered the stagecraft and we covered the band. But what about the audience? What about the vibe? One of my favorite things that happens at a live show is when a moment happens in the music that is not necessarily familiar to the audience, but somehow, for some reason, elicits a mass reaction. Again, not necessarily because it's something the audience fundamentally knew or knows or anticipates, but because the execution aligns with our inner beings. Think of the Grateful Dead or like some jam band or something. They can be in a groove playing a thing, but then say the guitar will break out of the pattern and like soar in a new direction or like go up a step. And even if this is just an improvisation on familiar works, that change will resonate with everyone. And when this happens, what does the audience do? They cheer in unison. No one sees it coming, really. I mean, maybe you can feel it building sometimes, but there's always a pinnacle moment that when it arrives, we're all on the same page. And we don't really know why, other than we just felt it. We felt it. We know what we felt, and that's what it is. So there was one particular moment like this at the Philly show that stuck out to me during the song 1121, where it felt like the gates of the underworld opened and the goddess Persephone presented herself and like brought forth the soul of her voice. This was actually the only place in the show that they used the bubbles, but it dramatically added to the effect. In my memory, Rhian was floating in space. When I have this memory, or not necessarily in space, like outer space, but floating on the stage. When I remember this moment, she was suspended in the air. But here's a picture from the moment, and she was standing on her feet. And also, you can't really see the bubbles too well. I definitely prefer the memory to the photo. But anyway, there was this moment at the end of the song 1121 where Rhian let out a single operatic note near the end of the song, and all the audience cheered at this. Personally, I felt it in my bones, and I imagine everyone else did too. Once again, that human sound, the essence of creation, like cutting through the above and cutting through the below and cutting through the in-between and just joining it all together and like leaving everyone to just shudder. So I actually found a clip of this moment and I'm going to play it. It comes courtesy of the YouTube channel Trespassers Will Be Shot. So here it is. I'm going to play it, and you'll see it begins with little dots of notes before she lets out the one that everyone reacts to. It'll be like, ha, ha, ha. And then you'll see that she removes the microphone downward as she lets this note out. So here's the video. All right, and I know the video can only do so much justice, but that split second shook the room. It united us. It made us feel something that I can't really put into words, but not for lack of trying. Not for lack of trying. Here I am. Anyway, when I go back and I listen to the original recording on the record, that is not there, at least not there like that. On the record, she kind of does the spaced out notes, and then when she gets to that part, she just does a little lift, like a ah. But obviously there's something more operatic and something from so much deeper than what you hear on the record that just opened up out of her. And again, it was effective in this moment with these people and this shared experience. Whether it was intentional or something that knew that they're just trying, it wasn't something that anyone who had the album was used to hearing that way. Because it was effective, and because we all got to share in it, because so many of us obviously felt it, like, what could be more heavenly than that? What is more heavenly than communion with the collective soul? What in this cold, dead world cuts deeper than that? The release of a single note triggering the rapture of a collective soul. That's what we were doing, rapturing. You can rapture all the time. That's what music is trying to get you to. That's what live performance is trying to get you to. Rapture. It doesn't mean you're going to heaven forever. No one's going anywhere forever. But you can go to the afterlife or the underworld or the afterworld or the underlife when you go see Wet Leg or pretty much any band, because that's what I think we're doing all this for. I think that's what we're sharing live music in dark rooms for. It is communion with the dead. It is communion with the past. It is communion with the archetypes and the mythology. And if you can catch Wet Leg on this tour, then I guess you should. And you should definitely buy their album, their new album, Moisturizer. And you can buy their old album too. It was self-titled, and it's a classic. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that. Go watch them and like and subscribe.